What are your observations about the people that we've been dealing with, and as we try and call these producers in northern Minnesota that have never had a vet or don't have a vet relationship, and they don't really like the university, and so there's a whole range of emotions and experiences that we're dealing with as we move into areas where they don't traditionally work with veterinarians. And that's going to be a really interesting challenge. Sort of as we think about the ideal region, this is and I liked Laura and Enrique's feasibility idea. When you think about a region, what are the characteristics of it? And we failed in one project, and we'll tell you about that one. In large part, I think, because we didn't have unified local leadership at the producer level and among veterinarians. We just were not on the same page, and we tried and failed. You need motivated producers, local leadership. I can't remember who said it, but that's certainly true. We from the university can come in, and I think we have an important role, whether it's the university or a government or a practice, somebody that keeps them on board, schedules the meetings, makes sure things take place. That's extremely helpful, but the local leadership's really critical. This is a big one. Few pigs entering the region from PRRS positive or unknown areas. Really big. Natural borders or low density at the perimeter, that's what we have at Stevens. We thought we had natural borders in Rice, but we really didn't. This is big. Few exhibition pigs and or willing to cooperate. We had a story in Rice where before we really got working with the exhibition folks, one of the larger herds had a $1.5 million break by the time they got it all cleaned up and so on and so forth. And shoe leather epidemiology indicated that it went back to exhibition pigs. It's difficult to say for sure, but the strain was identical, and it was a rare strain in that area, and it came into the area, and there was a pig jockey who worked at the farm, and blah, blah, blah. It all looked like the source. And so I really like what Danae is doing with your brochure and working with the exhibition folks in your region. We've got a local fella, David Larson, who's working with our exhibition folks, and Lee Johnson. Some of you may know Lee, extension agent in Morris. And so they have educational programs. We've got a system now where the sow farms in the region all contribute X amount of dollars, and then they provide prize money at the local fair if you show a PRRS negative pig. And so that's kind of nice. They're taking charge of that, and we're encouraging them to bring in PRRS negative pigs to the show. Terminal shows are great. We've gone away from those since the pseudo-rabies program. We'd sure like to get that back. We tried to have, by the way, a couple of years ago, after that presumed exhibition pig problem in Rice County, we tried to get the state legislature to make all shows terminal. And our Minnesota Pork Board director says he's never had so many calls than when he tried to put that in, basically tearing him apart, because it's a very emotional issue within the show folks. Higher is the density, obviously the tougher it becomes. So we tried for several years in Rice, and we failed. We stopped, we pulled the plug. We basically said, time and resources is not well spent there. And again, I would say it was lack of unified local veterinary leadership. We had one large influential producer who was unwilling to try herd closure. We had a beautiful herd plan all laid out for him. Monty Spencer and I went down late. It all wasn't going to cost him that much. But he didn't really get along with his brother, who lived about a half a mile away. And that brother, he said, he's positive, he's not going to clean up. I'm going to go to all this work, and I'll just get reinfected. So we couldn't get him to move beyond that, basically because of a brother relationship. And again, we had too many pigs. They would be negative this time, and then they'd be positive next time, and that was an ongoing challenge. In Stevens, one of the problems is our current red dot has tried it before and got reinfected, and we try to tell him, it's different today. You look at all the green around you. But he's equally convinced today that maybe he won't get it, but it's not costing me anything, so I'm not going to invest anything. So that's our current, we have to figure out what to do there. If we're going to buy, let's say, if we're going to create a bubble, it's a farrow to finish single site farm, by the way, about 320 sows, ongoing spread in the grow finish area. So we probably have to buy perhaps 3 months of pigs, create a little bubble, and see if we can move it through in that way. That'll hopefully work, but we have to figure out who's going to pay for that. We had one large herd. Closure was too big a step for them, but eventually they saw all this green going on around them, and they then worked with Al Carlson, by the way, and said, all right, we'll give it a whirl. And that was a huge success, and that was a very big thing for us. Exhibition pigs, I covered that a little bit. Challenges that we're facing today in this low density area. Limited interest in the producers. Again, they just don't have that relationship. The vets say yes, but behave no. We've got some vets that, okay, all right, and Cesar calls them every day, okay, have you got, and then now they're to the point where they don't return his calls, and is it him? No, don't answer. So we just can't get these vets on board. We've got producers don't have a relationship with the university, very wary. We're almost equivalent to big government, and so they're, it's kind of different. We have to figure that out. Veterinary knowledge is lacking. Given that, let's say we've got a few will actually behave yes, they don't really know. They don't come to AASV meetings. They don't come to the layman meeting. They're not here today, and so they don't know that this is successful. How do you sample a herd? What's 95-10 mean? Perhaps they're not very good bleeders. So there's, we've got those issues as you go into a low density area. By the way, one of the things we're thinking about is maybe we should try some meat juice sampling. Jim McKean's been working on that with USDA support. Maybe that would be a way by which we can get a large low density area sampled. Or maybe we can hang ropes at the collection center, at the buying station. Something along that line. So the encouragement and leadership of local veterinarians is critical. Positive stories, we can tell them some study that was done at some university, but a positive story by a local producer is much more influential than any research studies. I think they love Scott's work because he's local. He does great stuff. They all know Scott, and he comes out and he tells them all this stuff, and it must be believable because they know him. He's very local. General observations. I said earlier, I think the fact that most producers are willing to do this was a surprise. We started this back in 2002. Will veterinarians share data and work together and show up at the same meeting? And yes, in fact, they did. Not all on board at the same time, but will producers who are traditionally competitive with each other, will they share data? And the majority are, and that's good. We've got these fellas that aren't, but the majority are. An observation that Cesar gave me, and I think it's very true, the big guys generally go for it, but the small are more reluctant. And why? Well, maybe the small producers are older producers, more wary, everything's okay, why would I do that? Perhaps risk averse, facilities all paid off, etc. One guy said, those Stevens guys, they're just greedy. And he was, of course, outside Stevens, and he's not going to do anything. And it was apparently because he tried to move some pigs into Stevens, and some producers didn't want to have them because, well, we're negative. And why would we bring some positive pigs in, or maybe positive pigs? So he's got that thing going. As I said, they may not work for vets. This is an important one. We learned this about, once you sit down with veterinarians or producers, and what's going on here? Because everything is not on the surface. And you find out that 20 years ago, some producer perhaps bought some pigs, or in one case, I think they were going to rent some land, and they said one rent price, and then it came out being another price, and it's 20 years ago, and they're still hanging on to this. And so, I'm not going to cooperate. That doesn't come up at the surface, but it's underneath. And so you get some interesting stories, long memories. So I think it's, we've got, as I said, we've got that nice success taking place in Stevens. We don't know yet what we're going to do with our few remaining red dots. We're hanging out carrots. We're trying to get these folks to come along. It's really interesting. when you've got a voluntary program as opposed to a regulatory program. And we're learning as we go.